Big Brother is watching you. Not tomorrow, not in the future, right now. Governments from Washington to Beijing are unleashing tech that doesn't just watch you, it profiles you. It tracks where you go, who you talk to, even what you might do next. And you never even agreed to any of it. On today's episode of the Infographic Show, we're exposing the secret tech police are using to track you in real time. No matter who you are, your face is almost certainly online. Maybe you have public social media accounts, or maybe you've appeared in a photo at a wedding, a soccer game, or just passing by in the background on a busy city street. Either way, your image is out there, ready to be collected for a database that you never consented to. That's how the company Clearview AI built a library of an estimated 50 billion images. By scraping photos from across the internet, once your face is in their database, it can be matched against surveillance footage or any photo authorities feed into the system. The company insists its system is close to 100% accurate, but who is checking? Hardly any independent tests exist, and even a tiny error rate scaled across billions of faces could mean thousands, maybe millions of innocent people flagged by mistake. You'll never know when your face has been singled out or when the surveillance begins. Clearview and other facial recognition software has been called a perpetual lineup, a violation of rights and privacy that should be banned. But this is the new reality. The New York Times described Clearview as the secretive company that might end privacy as we know it. Yet that hasn't stopped around 2,200 organizations in 27 countries from adopting it, including the FBI, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and scores of local U.S. police departments. Critics claim mass surveillance is turning democracy into something far darker. Supporters of facial recognition say it means less crime and safer streets, but opponents say the opposite is true. Privacy is a basic right, and trust, not surveillance, is what keeps a society free. Mass tracking may watch everyone, but it never fixes the real problems underneath. They point out that if governments really wanted to reduce crime, they would invest in raising living standards rather than rolling out clever spying machines. To function on a large scale, facial recognition systems rely on vast camera networks, and here China leads the world. There are an estimated 700 million cameras, roughly 494 per 1,000 people, according to research at Comparitech. Chinese cities top the rankings of global surveillance, trailed by major hubs in India and Moscow, which averages 20 cameras for every 1,000 residents. Singapore ranks high at 18, London averages 13.4 unless you step into the City of London, the financial district where it skyrockets to 75 cameras per 1,000 people. Comparitech says Atlanta, Georgia tops the American list with 124 cameras per 1,000 people, followed by Washington, D.C. with 55, Philadelphia with 30, and San Francisco with 25. At any moment, they can scan your face, log your location, and connects you to a database that grows bigger by the day. And the question is, what is the future gonna be like? Once such surveillance infrastructure is in place, it's not likely to disappear. Americans found that out with President Bush's Patriot Act and Obama's FISA Amendments Act. As Edward Snowden showed, once you start mass surveillance, it's here to stay. Big Brother doesn't retire, he just gets better with age. History shows us that surveillance rarely stays in its lane. It starts with terrorism or crime, and then it quickly expands. Protesters, journalists, and citizens critical of inequality find themselves watched by the same systems built for public safety. It's impossible to say how many times the average person will be caught on camera in any given day, and it's been said the average American gets picked up 238 times a week. But the numbers will change drastically depending on what you do every day. But if you leave the house and you walk around a city or a town in the Western world, you are going to get caught on camera multiple times. In St. Louis, 29-year-old Christopher Gatlin's face appeared in police searches after two men beat a security guard on a quiet train platform. The attackers hadn't realized they were being filmed the whole time, and the system flagged Gatlin as a possible match. And that was enough to land him in jail, where he spent 16 months, even though he was innocent. His 100% match was a false positive. It took him nearly 2 years to clear his name, and then by then his life had been shattered. Gatlin's African American, and that put him at even higher risk, because facial recognition technology is notoriously less accurate on darker skin. But this isn't only a racial problem. White men and women have also wrongfully been arrested after false matches. The deeper issue is what's been called automation bias. Police might treat a computer's output as infallible, even when there is little to no corroborating evidence. In Gatlin's case, nothing was tying him to the crime, except the faulty algorithm and an unsure witness at a lineup. Sure, he didn't help himself when he cut off his ankle monitor while out on conditional release, but that doesn't change the fact that he should never have been arrested in the first place. And Gatlin wasn't alone. In 2022, Texas police accused another African-American man, Harvey Eugene Murphy Jr., of an armed robbery at a Macy's-owned sunglass hut. The problem? He was in California at the time. Despite his bulletproof alibi, he was arrested and jailed for 10 days, during which time he says he was assaulted. Eventually, prosecutors confirmed his innocence and dropped the charges. But those 10 days, the trauma, the humiliation, and the violence all happened because the computer made a mistake. And it doesn't stop with individuals. Facial recognition is now being rolled out in crowd settings. At U.S. Major League Baseball games, fans are scanned as they enter. The justification is public safety, spotting people wanted on outstanding warrants. But it also means tens of thousands of innocent spectators swept into a digital net every time they attend a game. They're effectively already in a possible lineup. In the near future, it may even affect the way we behave, creating what is called a chilling effect, the kind of thing we usually associate with authoritarian societies. And it doesn't just stop at the stadium gates. If you're planning on making a getaway in a car these days, think again. License plate recognition, or LPR cameras, now feed information back to a computer terminal. They can find a stolen car or help capture criminals after a crime has been committed. If police are looking for, say, a white Ford Bronco, they can input the license plate number and, through connected cameras, know exactly where it's traveling. These days, AI is watching the roads all day, all night, with automated license plate readers, or ALPRs. But this too can start to look dystopian if the people driving aren't your regular kind of criminal. Just recently, the state of Texas began using ALPRs in ways that critics say stretch far beyond crime fighting. In one case, police reportedly ran a nationwide search across 83,000 ALPR cameras to track down a woman suspected of performing her own abortion. These cameras can be hidden in streetlights, traffic signals, or even traffic cones. Officials claimed that it wasn't about catching her, but about protecting her, which may have been true, but the precedent is still chilling. It shows exactly what could happen if women tried to cross state lines to seek medical procedures outlawed in Texas. The public was never asked if it wanted this kind of surveillance. These technologies have been thrust on society without debate. Now, some experts warn of AI repression. Banks are increasingly using AI to flag suspicious transactions. That might sound harmless, but consider how easily an automated alert could misinterpret a side hustle or a cash deposit, potentially linking your account to tax authorities. Meanwhile, an estimated $32 trillion is hidden offshore by the world's wealthiest elites. Ordinary working people, not billionaires with shell companies, are the ones most likely to feel the squeeze of banking AI. The government insists it's all about catching serious criminals, but history suggests the net often ensnares the smaller fish. And it isn't your activities being watched, it's also your thoughts. Post the wrong comment about a future war or question dubious official policy during a health crisis, and you risk being flagged by an algorithm. Even if you're making reasonable arguments, you could end up on a watch list. The effect is predictable. People begin to self-censor, afraid that a joke, a critique, or even a question will bring a knock to the door. It's the kind of thing you would expect in North Korea, not in countries that call themselves free democracies. Yes, misinformation can be very dangerous and it needs to be dealt with, but governments themselves are not exactly immune from spreading it. History is full of moments where officials bent the facts, and the journalists who uncovered the truth were branded as liars, or worse, silenced. And that's why freedom of speech isn't just a luxury, it is the backbone of a healthy society. In the United States, the First Amendment still provides some protection, but even that safeguard is under pressure. Artificial intelligence systems are now crawling the internet, scanning billions of posts, images, and videos, and flagging anything deemed suspicious. The line between public and private is blurring fast. Some systems can even peer into private messages, raising a chilling question: who is really watching what you say? Privacy advocates warn one of the most disturbing trends is governments targeting irony itself. If AI flags a joke as offensive, will it know if it's satire? And should authorities really be policing dark humor even between friends? In the US, during the pandemic, a man in New Orleans joked on Facebook that COVID was like the zombie apocalypse, and police were out shooting the living dead. The post was flagged. Without a warrant, a SWAT team stormed in and arrested him under anti-terrorism laws. Everything you say, even humor, is being fed into the machine, helping police to possibly build a profile. Natural language processing AIs are currently finding offense and building toxicity scores. In the more authoritarian countries, Criticisms of politicians, even while joking, can land you in prison. Governments can use hate speech as an excuse to suppress dissent, but should it be happening in liberal democracies? In the Netherlands, a young man was recently listed on Amsterdam's top 600 criminals. The algorithm determined in the future he was likely going to be behind high-impact crimes such as assault, robbery, or even murder. He was 14. Sure, he was no angel. He'd already been involved in street robberies, but now his life was turned upside down. Whenever a crime was committed, cops would raid his house, or they would just stop him in the street and harass him. His younger brother was also flagged, placed on a list of the top 400, quote, future criminals, despite never having committed a crime in his life. It's true that in deprived areas where children grow up with little parental guidance and limited options, some will drift into crime. But does that justify putting them under surveillance simply because an algorithm predicts they might offend? Critics argue that this approach is discriminatory and prioritizes enforcement over trying to affect social change. In this case, the algorithm wasn't entirely wrong. The boy later stole a scooter, but when you're living in a neighborhood where crime is everywhere, you hardly need an algorithm to tell you that some kids will get into trouble. In the US, predictive policing has already been trialed in several states. Police claim it'll help reduce crime, but critics argue it's a dystopian approach when far more humane methods exist. The software zeroes in on poor neighborhoods and housing projects, often with large minority populations. That's no surprise. Crime data shows higher rates where children grow up in poverty, with low literacy, single-parent households, and greater exposure to violence, drugs, gangs, and alcoholism. For activists, targeting these communities with invasive technologies instead of improving living standards isn't progress, it's regression. And now the tech can pick someone out, watch them as they walk around, or drive somewhere and then read what they write online. The UK has gone even further. Police there have been developing a so-called murder prediction program. They've been feeding people's data into an algorithm to flag who might one day kill. Predicting murder is notoriously unreliable since most killings are impulsive. But once your name is on that list, you risk living under constant surveillance. Not surprisingly, it's faced heavy criticism, and that might be why it went in for a rebrand from the Homicide Prediction Project to the nicer-sounding Sharing Data to Improve Risk Assessment. The authorities didn't make the program public knowledge. We only know because of Freedom of Information requests. It makes you wonder what's going on behind closed doors. What we do know is troubling. Amnesty International reported in 2025 that 32 UK police forces have used geographic crime prediction, profiling, or risk prediction tools. Meanwhile, 11 forces have used individual prediction, profiling, or risk prediction tools. Amnesty added that despite heavy government investment, individual police forces and home office evaluations have found no compelling evidence that these systems have had any impact on reducing crime. What they do achieve is the selective targeting of marginalized communities, almost always poor ones. Amnesty says that amounts to discrimination without addressing root causes. In 2018, Chicago police claimed their new dystopian-sounding systems had helped reduce crime. According to The Economist, these included detection systems, surveillance cameras, and computer programs with the aim of identifying the places where violence is likely to break out. Murders fell from 771 in 2016 to 650 in 2017, while shootings dropped from over 3,500 to around 2,800. The biggest declines were in neighborhoods covered by the new data centers. So, did it work? By 2023, Chicago reported 575 homicides and about 2,300 shootings. In 2024, 581 homicides and nearly 2,800 shootings. That is fewer than before the tech rollout, but back in 2005, long before this technology, Chicago saw just 446 murders, far lower than today. Murders stay high because the underlying problems remain the same. Entire neighborhoods can now end up under surveillance. Cops surveil certain citizens because the computer tells them to. AI is building scores, painting portraits of people they plan to throw into prison. But politicians and police rarely ask the most basic question: why is there so much crime here in the first place? Critics say the new tech doesn't address the real social problems. Instead, it targets people before they even get a chance to move forward, treating them as suspects from the start. While AI surveillance might feel invasive, you would be surprised at the everyday things you assume are against the law but aren't. Check out things you thought were illegal but are perfectly fine to find out more, or click on this video instead.